We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. It is opening day week around here. We have opined about the life and legacy of Peter Giangelos. If you happen to hear the Peter principles around here, it's not me spiking the ball. It's me finishing the legacy and history. We expect David Rubenstein to take over on Thursday. It is a momentous week. Luke and I are in Florida right now. We're about to do a segment here discussing the NFL owners meetings that are going on at the JW Marriott here in Orlando, right outside of Lake Buena Vista. MIC. See you soon. We're going to be doing the Maryland Lottery Crab Cake Tour beginning at Fadley's on Fridays this month. We're also going to be at Costas on the 9th of April. I'm working out a Coco's date for later on in April as well. We hope to see you out. We'll be giving away the 10 times the cash scratch-offs. There are Pac-Man scratch-offs now, so I got to get some Waka Wakas. Luke Jones joins us now. We've discussed baseball, more baseball. We've watched a lot of baseball. We've gone to baseball. We've been rained out of baseball. We've had texts from baseball. We've had Jackson Holiday not make. We've had Peter Angelos die on this trip. We haven't made it home yet. And we're really here for the NFL owners meetings. Your first NFL owners meetings. Now, by the time people hear this, they may be in progress, different things. I've been to about 18 of them, Luke, so I can tell you a lot of things about these owners' meetings, but you are going to see opulence on the lawn on Monday night, and unlike anything you've ever seen before. And I hope you enjoy being behind the velvet carpet and the little red rope while I'm outside drinking from the other water cooler. But my beers will be just as cold on the outside, I assure you.
So yeah, you'll be outside the perimeter, I guess. Well, but that was a line about the stadium, right? So
I love when you start
not
stealing my
make fun of
snark.
Yeah, not to make light of that on your part, but yeah, I mean, look, it's a unique experience for me. I'm looking forward to that. I hope I'm not underdressed at the festivities on Monday night, but I think, as it pertains to the Baltimore Ravens, I think it's a very interesting time in terms of where they are roster building wise and what they've done to this point, what they have not done to this point, who they've signed, whom they have not signed. I mean, it's very much incomplete. I think the best way to put the roster right now is very much incomplete in terms of since guys they've lost in positions of need that they have right now. Now, since the last time you and I met in this forum to discuss, we talked about it over the course of the last week in private conversation, but they've added some depth pieces. Chris Board, a veteran inside linebacker, bringing back, someone that came up as a Raven, as an undrafted rookie free agent, and has cut his teeth here in Baltimore, went elsewhere, and it's a good special teams player. A little bit of an insurance policy, I think, as it pertains to replacing Patrick Queen, as we expect Trenton Simpson to ultimately get that job. They brought in Josh Jones, formerly of the Houston Texans, a versatile offensive tackle, has some positional flexibility, I think. So I think he's an interesting piece. Not someone I'm ready to just pencil into the starting lineup, but certainly a name of interest. And even just getting a little bit closer to last weekend, they met with Josh Reynolds. They met with Michael Gallup. So they've been looking at some veteran wide receivers. So they've been casting a wide net. Now, I'm not saying that any of those names I just mentioned are quote unquote answers for them for 2023, but they certainly could be depth pieces that ultimately help them out. But the biggest thing I'm looking to see from John Harbaugh with the coach's breakfast, which is always first thing Monday morning, the AFC side, NFC the following day, is where is he with some of these young offensive linemen? We can talk about drafting a tackle or a guard at 30th. We can talk about drafting a second lineman on day 2 or early day 3 or whenever it is. But we've talked about it for a while. Chances are, given the attrition that they've experienced with Kevin Zeitler out the door and Morgan Moses out the door and John Simpson out the door, replacing 3 starters, I have a tough time thinking that it's going to be 3 brand new arrivals, veterans or draft picks. I feel like at least one of those spots is going to be filled by an incumbent. So is it Ben Cleveland at right guard? Is it Jason Voorhees, or not Jason? It's Friday the 13th right there. Andrew Voorhees, the guy they took in the 7th round last year out of USC, tore up his knee at the combine. Is it him? Maybe at left guard. Is it Daniel Faalele? Even though I have
I
my
was going to
doubts
say
on
it's
that
not
front.
him. I don't think
I
it's him.
don't think so. I don't think so.
If he were the left
But
tackle of the future, they wouldn't have given Stanley the money.
but
I
I'll
mean,
give you.
seriously, right? They would have said, "All right, we're done with you. We'll keep the
Well,
young
he wouldn't be left. He would be right. He
right
would be a
tackle."
right tackle. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fair enough.
But I think that the name that could be interesting, it might be that Patrick McCary does start the year as a starter, after being their super utility guy, their sixth lineman that can play any of the five spots. So, I kind of want to see where John Harbaugh is with that. And look, he might say that everything's great because they don't really know what to say otherwise right now. And that's that. But, I want to hear where he is with Ben Cleveland, where he is with Voorhees, where he is with Big Sala, who started training camp as their starting left guard last summer before they put the pads on, and then it was like, oh, he's not close to ready, but maybe he will be ready this summer. So, that's the big position for me because you have some internal candidates, in-house candidates that I have a tough time believing that they're going to find all their answers from outside. Whether it's they brought in the guy from the Texans or whether it's drafting a couple. I feel like one of those incumbents, one of those backup incumbents, are probably going to have to fill one of the starting roles, if not two of them. So that's where that's probably one of my first questions to John Harbaugh. And I'm sure others will be thinking the same thing. But it's an interesting time because this league meeting compared to last year at this time, or certainly the year before, on the heels of the Watson contract and Bisciotti speaking and, kind of stepping in it, so to speak, in terms of some of the things that were said that ruffled some feathers, kind of either other teams around the league or Lamar or whatever it was. They are in a quieter spot in terms of, you know, they're not dealing with a franchise quarterback that is unhappy and tagged and at this point, was requesting a trade, at least privately. Or actually, that's when we found out, right? That was officially when Lamar had tweeted out that he had requested a trade. So it's going to be way quieter on that front. But this team does have a lot of question marks right now, and that's not to say that they won't figure it all out come August and September. But there are a lot of holes and there's a lot of uncertainty here. So will be interesting to see what John Harbaugh has to say. But just overall, looking forward to kind of being in this atmosphere, at least personally for me, the first time that I've been around it.
I've been at a lot, and this is the time of the year where when somebody gets arrested, or when big quarterback change, or even a franchise moving. Like I was there the day they moved the Oakland Raiders to Las Vegas. They made the announcement in front of me out in Scottsdale a couple years ago, as well as a whole bunch of Raiders protesters that were outside of the Biltmore. So all those kinds of things. I don't know if there's anything global there. I was going to say to you that the biggest story in the world of sports this week would be Shohei Ohtani. And if that sort of thing happened in the NFL, if it was Jared Goff who was gambling or whatever, everybody would be at the Detroit Lions. Like whoever it is, I saw Mike Tomlin when Ben Roethlisberger had his problems down in Georgia.
Right.
And he was the one where everybody was. Bill Belichick after Deflategates, where everybody was, right? I don't know that there's anything like that, but they're certainly for Mike Tomlin at his table, let's say, talking about two new quarterbacks, right? One from Chicago, one from Seattle, young guy, old guy, who's going to play? We're going to start the starter, all of that. I think it'd be interesting to be at the Colts table talk about Joe Flacco, right? So quarterbacks and drama and new coaches that have never done this before, general managers that have never done this before, or in some cases, owners who have never done this before, including Josh Harris.
Yeah, no question about it. And what's interesting, with some of what you just mentioned, I mean, John Harbaugh, and we saw this at the combine. I think at the combine, I want to say the first four questions he got were either about Jim Harbaugh or one of the coaches that had just left the Ravens to become a head coach somewhere else. I mean, that it might have been the first seven or seven of the first eight, something
There'll
like
be
that.
no doubt that the Seattle beat writers will be
Yeah.
over at John's table asking him everything. That's the way this works. You're going to see that.
No doubt. And okay, I mean, the Chargers might be a little bit different because Jim Harbaugh will be talking at the same time, but anyone that has.
Oh, I forgot. Jim's going to be there too.
Exactly.
Give him my best. Tell him I said hello. I forgot
yes.
about that.
So there's so much of
probably
that
means
going on.
Jack's going to be here and Jackie and they're all going to be here.
I have not heard one way or the other, but it's very well possible. So But we saw that at the combine. I mean, Eric got those questions about the attrition. John got the questions about the coaching attrition. So, I think there'll definitely be some of that, to the chagrin of us local reporters that are here wanting to try to maybe find out about, some of the roster building questions. But
Oh, we did the where's the owner thing because it's the
yeah,
owners meeting. It's not the head coach's meeting. It's not the general.
correct,
It's the owners meetings. And
correct.
people like us get on planes and fly down here to chase billionaires on behalf of the citizens who just gave him $600 million. And apparently they're going to make Sashi Brown available. I hope you're allowed to get a question in. I hope you filed that in with Chad to get your question in ahead of time. But Sashi Brown's going to speak too, that's also a unicorn sighting, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm.
You ever talked to Sashi Brown? Have you?
I have. Other than the opening
He's
press
been here
conference,
2 years. You're the
think
beat
I said
writer
hello.
for the team. He should know you. He doesn't know
So
you. We talk about things that Rubenstein's going to try to get right.
let me
Being
ask you
nice to
this.
people. Sashi Brown doesn't know anybody in this city. He's an outsider. Why would he not want to know Luke Jones, who knows everybody?
Let me ask you this, because I was going to ask you this off the air, so I might as well do it now, because I think you're a very relevant person to ask this. What would be your top 3 questions for Sashi Brown?
Money, money, and money. Stadium renovations. Why? Is the beer really colder inside the perimeter, or the hot dogs really warmer? What does that really mean? Sashi, I got a report here that says your playoff tickets were the lowest sales of all the playoff teams. The prices were the lowest. You've had 10,000 empty seats at a lot of games last year. I can show you the SeatGeek and the StubHub, and the tickets were $10 on game nights for 6 of your 9 home games last year. Well, Wembley, not Wembley, Tottenham being one of the other road games they did that drew a lot of people over there.
Mm-hmm.
So for you with commitment to down, I would ask Sashi Brown about his commitment to the city and where he's been and what he's been doing the last years and what he's learned about the Ravens and what he's learned about Baltimore and what he's learned about our community and what he's learned about the local government and like all of that. Has he been to an Oriole game? Where does he live? What's his favorite restaurant in town? Like, has he been seen out? I mean,
you gave me a lot more than 3.
There you go. You got it.
I wanted your top 3.
Take the top 3. There you go.
Okay.
Money, money, and money. The stadium, the renovations.
I can't just say Sashi money. I was trying to do a little bit of.
How about this, Sashi? Where's Steve? Where's the owner? There's the question 1. That's 1 and 1A. Where's the owner to answer these questions? Where's your owner? He hasn't answered questions in a couple of years. Where's he? We just gave him $600 million. We'd like to see him available. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, you got those? All right. We good? Luke and I are here. We're in Florida. He will be hanging out with John Harbaugh and Jim Harbaugh. You hit the Harbaugh Daily Double at the breakfast. Be following him out on social media. He'll be tweeting out stuff. I will probably be at Epcot drinking some avocado margarita or something like that and enjoying the Flower Festival and the sounds of ELO. The league issues and television and money and I mean, I feel like I was in a private conversation Saturday with a couple friends that live in Tampa, went to a pool, and we started talking about football because that's what I do for a living, and that's how they know me, even though I try not to talk about football at the pool. And we were talking about the Peacock thing and about the streaming thing, and they're just regular people who like football, you know what I mean, and they're Bucks fans and whatever. And he mentioned it to me. He's like, what's that Peacock playoff thing? We can't get games. Like, what are they doing? This is a guy who owns a business, right? So he's talking to me about it, but he's not a big time football fan. He's just a football fan whose father-in-law upstairs wanted the Chiefs Dolphins game and couldn't get it that night. Like literally, right? So he was asking me about it. So I think anything from the owners' meetings that involves the voice of what fans think, just to ask those questions is an important thing. Because I think at these things, and I think how douchey the media can be in a general sense, these things wind up being questions media guys want to ask instead of questions that fans want answered.
Right. Fair enough.
And I'm a media guy. I'm a douchey media guy. Luke Jones is here. He's the opposite of that. He is Baltimore Luke. You can find him anywhere the internet is served doing Raven stuff. Certainly the death of Peter Angelos, the life and legacy of him this week, the ownership of David Rubenstein, opening day. But from the Ravens' perspective for you with this and seeing it against the room and against everybody else in the room, they're all chasing the Ravens at this point, dude. And you'll hear that for the next 2 days, right? I mean, number 1 seed, 13-4, MVP. John's kept his job. Eric's kept his job. They're a model organization. Everybody in the room doesn't really want to. They want to be Jerry because he makes money, but they don't want to operate. Nor Steve idolized Jerry Jones, but does not operate like he operates.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to like about the Ravens. And they're not all chasing the Ravens; they're chasing the Chiefs. I mean, but certainly the Ravens are one of the teams at the top there, and I think it's that going back to what I said a few minutes ago. I think this is a fascinating offseason for them because they are in a position where they've lost a lot of players. They've lost a lot of coaches. I mean, they lost an executive. I mean, Eric DaCosta lost his right-hand man Joe Ortiz. So he's down here. As the general manager of the Chargers now. So it's a lot of Ravens fingerprints with some of these other organizations that are going to be present this week. But at the same time, all of that being acknowledged, this is a team that's still in a really good position. They've made some really good moves, beginning with keeping Justin Madubuike. And obviously they made the big move with Derrick Henry. And we're going to see how that plays out in terms of how lucrative and how fruitful that's going to be. But they've got some question marks too, but they always do this time of year. This isn't the time of year where the Ravens are at their best in terms of perception from a football standpoint, right? I mean, last year was a great example of this. Look at all the guys that at this time last year weren't on the roster. I mean, heck, they didn't even have Lamar signed. I mean, he wanted to be traded at this time last year. And to the point that you just made, they were 13-4 and the number one seed and the best team in the NFL during the regular season. So I think that's where it's also important to maintain some levity and understand where things are right now for this team and, where they're going to be going. And they got a lot of work to do. I think John will acknowledge that when he speaks at the coaches' breakfast. But, I think they've got a really strong core in place that's going to continue to put them in a position to win. And we've seen it over and over for going on year 7 now. Lamar Jackson's healthy and upright. The Ravens win a lot of football games to get to January. But what's coming next, because we've been talking about that for 2 months now since the AFC title game. All comes down to January. All comes down to whatever moves they're going to make between now and then, what's going to position them for January. Derrick Henry, you and I had great debate on that, in terms of you love it. I don't hate it. Let's be clear about that. I'm a little more torn, a little more uncertain in terms of uses of the resources and what he's going to bring compared to what they've already done running the football and what else they still need to do with their roster.
They figure out the offensive line. He's a great piece. If they don't figure out the offensive line, you're right and I'm wrong.
But part of that was also what you spent on him could have helped you with the offensive line. Anyway, point is, Derrick Henry, if he helps them win games in January, it's a great move. But if he runs for 1,500 yards and they still fail in January, and I don't want to say fail, they lose, they come up short, they come up
short and they hand him the ball 4 times in 60 minutes, then
then they're right. Well, yeah, sure. But so I mean, it's both a great place and it's a lousy place to be, because it's great because you've had all this success and the expectations are high. And you have every expectation that you're going to continue to be really good. At the same time, I'm not sure what else they could possibly do in the regular season at this point that is really, truly going to matter from a legacy setting, a legacy defining standpoint. It's all January.
They go 16-1 and lose in the 3rd week of the playoffs. It's over, right?
It's even worse, right?
You said nobody's chasing them. They're chasing the Chiefs. I'll agree to that at some point, but then that report card came out that the Chiefs aren't making their own players happy to some degree. But I would agree with you. But I think from a stability standpoint, every team in the league would like to have what the Ravens have every year, where they're in the room and in the conversation. That's all. And
sure,
that's my compliment to the Ravens. Don't expect me to compliment them much down here while you have a press pass and I don't.
Sure. I mean, look, and I would also say the Ravens didn't get all A's in that either. I have feelings about that report card in terms of how the grading actually works. And my thought is, beyond the overwhelmingly glowing A+ grades and the F- like the Orioles got for their strength coach grade Ravens got for their strength coach grade last year with on the heels of Steve Saunders being fired. I think most of the grades in the middle, most of the rankings from whether you're 5th or 25th, I think that's a lot of statistical noise at the end of the day. I think it's worth an ear. Like, it's worth at least considering it. I don't think it's necessarily, because you ranked 17th in something rather than 5th, that makes necessarily a major difference. But your point is well taken. And look, I was only disputing the fact that you have a team that's won the Super Bowl 3 times in the last 5 years or whatever it is. But beyond that, I mean, the Ravens, they're one of the class organizations. We know that. And they've been right there. They're consistently getting to January here in recent years. In the Lamar era, they absolutely have. They've gotten there every year. He hasn't been hurt, but they've got to break through. So everything they do now, whether we're talking about backup corners or who's going to play right tackle, who's going to rush from the edge, it's all about January. All about January. All about January. And that's tough because we're going to talk about it a whole lot between now and then. And that doesn't mean we don't, fans shouldn't enjoy the ride, but in terms of the legacy, the regular season accolades at this point, it's been there, done that. I mean, Lamar's won 2 MVPs. He'd be the first to tell you that. I've won 2 MVPs. I need a Super Bowl.
He's won 2 MVPs in 2 playoff games.
So, I mean, it's
right. 2 and 4 in playoff games, correct?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. 2
yeah.
and 4.
I mean, I'll also throw out something, at least the acknowledgement of you've been so great in the regular season, you've had 2 buys also. You don't get credit for wild card wins when that happens, but we should at least acknowledge that. But yeah, 2 playoff wins. 2 playoff wins for John Harbaugh since 2014. 2 playoff wins for Mark Andrews or for
Marlon Humphrey in there. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Marlon Humphrey. I mean, Ronnie Stanley. I mean, that's, they're all there. They're all chasing that. This team has done so much in the regular season, but it's the truth. January. I mean, it's where it is right now. I don't say that the regular season means nothing. I mean, my goodness, of course you have to play well to get there, but everything they do now, and that's why the Derrick Henry thing, it comes down to this. Does he help them win in January? If he runs for 1,500 yards and they lose in the divisional round again, or not the AFC Championship, then doesn't mean it was the wrong move, to be clear, but was it the move that put them over the hump? No, it wasn't. So, that's just kind of where they are right now. And, I think it is worth noting they've made some depth signings here, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. They are in a position where they can restructure a couple deals here or there and create some cap space. I don't think there are a ton of players on the open market at this point, other than like re-signing Jadeveon Clowney, for example, that are moves that necessarily are moving the needle dramatically, especially at some of their positions of need. But we'll see what happens. I mean, we're about a month out from the draft, believe it or not, which it feels like it feels like the season just ended in some ways. But before we know it, it'll be draft time and see where they pick, who they pick 30th overall, and they've got a number of other picks as they get deeper into the draft. They've got to hit on some of those. It becomes that much more important. We saw this in the post big contract Joe Flacco era with Lamar. It becomes more and more important now for them to nail their draft picks. They get a couple more drafts like they had in 22, where you get Hamilton and Linderbaum. You do that 1 or 2 more times over the next 3 or 4 years, then you've got some more superstars coming onto this team at a cheap rate. And that's what they're going to be hoping to do here come next month.
Got to keep up with all these Jackson Holidays and Colton Cowsers we got going on the baseball side. It's opening day week. It's also NFL owners meetings. Luke and I are in Florida. We've been in Florida the last 5 days running around with the Orioles. Now we're going to run around with the Ravens for a little while. And we're stoked about the baseball season, and certainly a couple weeks out on the draft. The only thing we're going to do football-wise here for a little while is what we're doing. We'll be back in Baltimore on Wednesday. In the meantime, keep enjoying us. Keep following Luke out on social media. I am Nestor. He is Luke. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore positive.